This seems like an odd one for us. Donuts are already one of the cheapest foods on the planet, coming in at this price per donut on average. But that's just for a plain glaze. What if you want something ultra gourmet for this price? That's but cheaper.
You know, the holidays are right around the corner, which means it's time to get nice and snuggly with the ones that you love. Here, have a little hot cocoa. Oh, you spilled some. There we go. All better. Still a whole 40% off on Amazon. This 6 times New York Times bestseller is available, and the link is in the description. Happy holidays.
We all like our donuts. We have our favorite places that we go to, etc. I don't understand why people have them for breakfast, by the way. Is that really a thing? Best way to ruin your day. You eat 3 donuts at 8 a.m., rest of your day, screwed, tired, the entire day. The point is, I wanted to make a donut that is relatively cheaper than the average just plain glazed donut, but instead of it being plain glazed, we're gonna take it all the way up. We're talking fully homemade dough that's got maxed out buttery flavor, but on top of that, we're making ultra gourmet donuts with their own toppings. Multi-tiered, multi-level with like cereal or cereal milk, and you go to like a fancy donut shop and it's like $4 or $5 a donut. Can it be done?
Better bet your little sweet patootie it is.
So with all that being said, let's make this, shall we?
I've simultaneously figured out how to make donuts undeniably soft and undeniably cheap. Well, I guess they've always been cheap. Yes, there is a rematch for the Krispy Kreme coming, and I have not forgotten. Anyway, in a container, add 1.5 cups or 360 milliliters of whole milk at around 95 Fahrenheit. To that, you'll whisk in 1 tablespoon or 11 grams of instant yeast, followed by a 1/3 cup or 74 grams of granulated white sugar. Then in a small bowl, add 2 whole eggs, cracked, obviously, and 1 egg yolk. Add your yeasty, milky mommy mixture to the bowl of a stand mixer, whisk your eggs together, and add that as well. Begin mixing on medium speed, then whisk together 4.5 cups or 675 grams of all-purpose flour with 1 teaspoon or 6 grams of fine sea salt. Then while your stand mixer is constantly mixing, add your flour mixture about 3 tablespoons at a time until all of your flour has been added and a dough has formed. Then reduce the mixer speed to medium-low and knead for 1 minute, then add 1/2 cup or 115 grams of unsalted softened butter. Let that brother incorporate and mix for 5 minutes or until you have a beautifully smooth dough. And it's starting to pull from the sides of the bowl. Yes, the dough will be a little bit sticky. It's highly hydrated, and that's okay. That's what we want. Take a deep breath in, let it out. We're making donuts, not a large Hadron Collider. Now give that brother a couple kneads by hand, then plop it into a large greased bowl, form it into a rough ball, cover with plastic wrap, and give it a passive-aggressive name this time, and let that rise at room temp for 1.5 hours or until doubled and as thick as my thighs. Moving magic and it's done. Dust that with flour and observe the fact that this dough now has life. Then just lightly pat all of that life out of the dough until completely degassed. Pop that into a lightly floured work surface, dust the top with flour, and roll it with a rolling pin until you get a large rectangle that's about 3/4 of an inch thick. And at this point, you could totally use a donut cutter, which I don't have one. Instead, use a 3-inch biscuit cutter to cut out as many rounds as possible. Then use a smaller circular biscuit cutter to cut out the hole. See, now you know why they're called donut holes. Ah yes, increasing your business margins while also glazing holes. Anyway, once you've punched out as much of the dough as possible, you'll have a ton of dough scrap. Knead it lightly together to homogenize and let that rest for 5 minutes. Roll it back out and cut again. Yes, you can cut more. Depending on their size, you should get 20 to 25 donuts. But I went extra large because I felt like it. But I would actually advise against doing that because these were so big that it was kind of hard to eat an entire one by itself. Anyway, cover with plastic wrap and let that proof at room temp for 45 minutes or until puffed and plump like a baby. So we're past the hard part, it's smooth sailing from here. As long as you're not a ding-dong and behave recklessly with your fry oil, you should be good. Fill a large heavy bottom pot just slightly over halfway with vegetable oil and heat it to 350 Fahrenheit. Using a greased flat spatula, carefully pick up a donut, lay it into the oil and fry 2 to 3 donuts at a time, accounting for expansion so they don't overcrowd the pot and form into weird square shapes. The frying portion happens pretty quickly, so I would say about 45 seconds to a minute, then flip and repeat on the other side. We don't want these to get super dark. We want them sort of a darkish, tannish color. An overfried donut is a depressing donut. You know, something like this beautifully smooth round. By good Lord, I could kiss it. Except I wouldn't because it's extraordinarily hot. So instead I sniff. Pull that out of the oil, drain on a wire rack, and repeat with all of your donuts and their accompanying holes until you've fried all your donut baby men. Now let those bad boys cool, and before we discuss our topping, let's just look at these things. They're absolutely ridiculous in how aerated and soft they are. I mean, look at the inside of that puppy. Snake my drain, prank call my cousin, spank a squirrel. I can smell the sweet yeasty aroma right now. Now we can discuss our toppings. This is where we save our money the most. A gourmet donut can get very expensive when it comes to toppings. Usage of vanilla beans, expensive chocolates, which don't get me wrong, I'm a big fan of that. But how do we leverage exciting dessert flavors without cost? Well, turns out, cereal. You all know I have a soft spot for cereal, so let's not get hung up on that. While we may have the necessary plain glazed, the real stars are two others, a cereal milk cornflake donut and a double chocolate peanut butter puff donut. If your whole body isn't tingling a little right now, I don't know what to do for you, pal. Be aware that the price is really only calculated for one of these options, but you could do all three without changing the price too much. Okay, so the plain glaze is simple. In a large bowl, add 5 cups or 641 grams of confectioners sugar. That's little fancy pants pastry talk for powdered sugar. Mix that together with half a cup or 118 grams of hot water. Go slow with the water here at first. You may need to use slightly less depending on your humidity, etc. Then add 1 teaspoon or 4 grams of vanilla extract and a tiny pinch of salt. Whisk together until completely smooth and homogenized, and it should be thick enough to sort of cling to the whisk like this. And that's it, it's done. Then all you do is dunk a cool donut in and coat both sides thoroughly, drain on a wire rack, and repeat with your donuts. Now, moving on to cereal milk. Look, all you really need is a half cup or 15 to 20 grams of cereal of choice. Cover that with half a cup or 120 milliliters of whole milk. We got our corn flakes, frosted flakes, peanut butter puffs, and fruity pebbles, which, you know, not so into fruity pebbles, but they got that pizzazz in this relatively monochromatic lineup. Then just let those bad boys sit at room temp for 10 minutes or in the fridge covered overnight if you want that maximum flavor. Granted, if you're gonna go max on flavor, I do suggest making a larger batch so you have extra for other usages and it's not a waste of time. Now strain the cereal out of the milk and you have cereal flavored infused milk. Now you simply just use that milk to make an icing for donuts. Yep. That's it. So get yourself 2 cups or 250 grams of powdered sugar and add just enough of your cereal milk of choice so that it's about twice as thick as your plain glaze coating. You want this to cling to the top of your donuts and hold, so it should be very thick. You may only use a couple tablespoons of milk. Now once it's done, take a cool donut, dip just the top into it, let it drain slightly, give it a little spin. Flip so the unglazed side faces down on the wire rack, and then top one side with the correlating cereal. You know, I did a little bit offset for the culinary flex. Last but far from least is the double chalky way. For the chocolate glaze to a medium bowl, add 2 cups or 250 grams of powdered sugar, 4.5 tablespoons or 24 grams of cocoa powder, a small pinch of salt, whisk together, then whisk in a 1/4 cup or 40 grams of cereal milk. This cereal milk is Cocoa Puff milk, of course, makes sense. Whisk that until thoroughly combined, and you should have a beautifully thick glaze. For the peanut butter drizzle, simply whisk together 3 tablespoons or 64 grams of peanut butter with half a cup or 47 grams of powdered sugar. Yes, it will be thick. Relax. Thin that out with water until it reaches a consistency that's drizzable but still relatively thick. Same thing as before. Get a cool donut, dip just one side to coat with the glaze, let it even itself out slightly, then this time immediately dunk that glazed side into a bowl of Cocoa Puffs, place it in a wire rack, unglazed side down, then immediately drizzle with your peanut butter icing, and so we're done. A beautiful row of donuts, a nice subtle mix of highs and lows to make for an undeniably cheap and mouth-watering gourmet donut for the price of this per serving right god dang here. That is how you butt cheaper, folks. Now let's taste test these and see if we can get that gourmet out-of-body experience that we all desire.
We have donuts to eat here. We have a classic glazed donut, and I'm talking properly glazed. I mean, it gets that means it's got a candied-like crust. A chocolate donut with Reese's Puffs and a peanut butter topping. Then we have a frosted flake donut, also known as my cereal milk donut. You can do this with any kind of cereal that you want. All right, first bite. This is single-handedly the best donut we've made on this channel, period, end of story. It like breathed air into my body. It was like, next one. Okay, I will be honest, this does kind of rip up the roof of your mouth upon the first bite, but then it just beats the life out of you with unbelievable chocolatey peanut butter flavor, dude. Yeah, so then the next one, this straight up tastes like a toasted marshmallow. Why? This price for glazed, this price for chocolate, and this price for our, I guess, toasted marshmallow at an average price of this right here for gourmet donuts, dude. Now you go on, get your fry oil rolling, and you call that girl Becky back. Don't you be scared, you can do it.
You wanna know what else is glazed, plump, and fragrant? B-roll.
All right, right, guys, and that is it. So we have our gourmet donuts. It doesn't just have to be a cereal donut to be gourmet, which almost seems like a mixture of highs and lows. It's gourmet, but it has cereal on it. When you make a donut at home, not only do you have complete and utter control of the size, the way they look, the way that they're fried, how long they're fried, what they're coated in, the flavors that they have. Maybe you mix a little bit of orange zest in your dough and you're like, God dang! And it's the same freaking price and arguably better. You can top this with whatever you want, and chances are it's not gonna make that price go up egregiously unless you start throwing in expensive stuff like vanilla bean, which I'm not saying I'm not guilty of that. It's like that kid in that one meme where his head vein's popping and he's on his desk and he's like, how do people do that on TikTok? In 10 years, they're gonna go to their doctor and their doctor's gonna be like, you're gonna die like tomorrow. What are you doing? So what we learned today was you can make a donut for very cheap, and you could also go to the hospital if you do that. Don't do that, that's not good for your health. So if you enjoyed this video or you learned something, leave a like, subscribe, and I will see you next time. Don't put your head like that and make your vein pop, 'cause that's bad for your health, bad for you.